Hi, this is Dave Belsky, your host of the Town Cannabis Sunset Session, brought to you by FlowerHire. We have an amazing guest today, actually runs what I think is the largest California cannabis company, Ed Schmults from StateHouse. Thanks for coming in.
Great to be here in this incredible setting. Thank you.
Oh, it's the weather is definitely cooperating today, although it does that most days in Southern California, thankfully. But StateHouse is the combination of the iconic Harborside brand, Urban Leaf, as Loud Pack, and Sublime.
Yes.
Right? And so all of Harborside was already a public company.
Yep.
And all the other companies have rolled up into Harborside and is being rebranded as StateHouse.
Yes.
And has already been rebranded as StateHouse.
That's right.
Excellent. So what is your role with StateHouse?
So I'm the CEO. And
it's a big job.
Yeah, it was a process. So Harborside acquired Sublime, and Harborside, as you know, is such a great advocacy organization. The first brand really in California of that store in Oakland, and it acquired Sublime. Actually, they closed on the deal just about a year ago, and then in early March, Harborside acquired Urban Leaf, Southern California retailer, about 7 stores, mostly in San Diego, a few up the coast. And then on April 4th of this year, that entity merged with Loud Pack, and with their brands and their manufacturing and cultivation facility in Greenfield. So we're a pretty sizable company now, 13 stores, 9 brands, 230,000 square feet of cultivation in Salinas and Greenfield, large manufacturing facility that makes all of our form factors. Salesforce, distribution team, we do it all, but we're singularly focused on California. We're not trying to be an MSO. This market's big enough.
It is the largest largest cannabis market in the world, right? Yeah. So talk to me about your background prior to cannabis, because it's an impressive background.
Yeah, I think
you're like the most impressive person who's ever sat here.
I'm so sorry. I think my background was interesting. One of the things people said when I came to my previous company in 2018 was I was the wholesome guy because I worked at FAO Schwartz. So I don't really have I wish I had a strategic career sense. I kind of have a kind of a jagged career course, but I really had to work at a place that I could identify with, that attracted me, that I could really buy into. It's not about making money with me. It's about the relationships and what we're making and creating, and the people I work with. That was has always been the most important. So I started off after college working on Wall Street, and I did that for 3 years in New York and in London. And sure, the money was good, but it just left me kind of hollow. I didn't really care about it.
You weren't excited to go in and work really hard.
I didn't care about it. So I went to business school, and I came out, and the year after I graduated, after a stint at a consulting company, I found my way to Patagonia, which I had spent a summer up above the Arctic Circle in Alaska and wore Patagonia literally 24 hours a day for over 30 days.
To stay alive.
To the washing, well, summer, but bugs, and it was cold, it snowed, and all this stuff. Anyway, so I had a real affinity for that brand, and I just had an opportunity to get a job there, and I was there for almost 8 years. Such a great brand, taught me a lot about what to focus on, the power of a team, the power of a simple, clear message.
It's a consumer packaged good brand, but also operates on retail.
Yeah. So we had stores across the U.S. They sent me to Japan for 2 years to fix the Japanese operations that needed a turnaround. We had businesses in Europe and South America, and just the Patagonia level of quality and the way that brand touched on its heritage and just was relentless on telling that story. That if you buy this brand, you're buying quality, you're buying functionality, and you're buying a strong environmental ethic. And
makes people feel a certain way.
Yeah, for sure. And you see people on the street, you kind of give them the nod. Hey, we think alike. And then from there, I had an opportunity to run a smaller company, of all things, founded up in Humboldt, up in Arcata, that had gone bankrupt.
Not a cannabis company?
Not a cannabis company, an outdoor clothing company. And we rebuilt that back up out of bankruptcy, sold that. I did a couple of consulting gigs. Was working at Red Envelope, the catalog and internet gift retailer. My first time at a public company, so that was informative. When a headhunter called with an opportunity to go to New York City to run FAO Schwartz, at the big 60,000 square foot store on 5th Avenue and 58th Street, 60,000 square foot store at Caesar's Forum Shops, catalog, internet, and just 150 years of brand history that, we had 30,000 people a day in our store in the holiday times. I mean, that is pretty amazing.
I went to that store when I was, I think, 11 or 12, and I act like I was Tom Hanks.
Yes, I got to stand on the piano with Robert Lozier, the guy that he danced with. He came to the store, and our head of marketing was there, and she called me. She said, "You got to get up here right away." So I hopped in a cab and raced uptown, and he was still there, and he told me some great stories. That scene in Big, Penny Marshall was the director. She gave Tom Hanks and Robert Lozier kind of a big piece of paper for their hotel room that night, 1-1-2-2, so they could practice jumping. And then they shot that in one take while people were walking around the store, because she wanted it to feel spontaneous, and it certainly does.
And that's hard to do in a major production.
Yeah, kind of a cool story. That was a neat part of that store, is just the people that came through and things like that. And then after that, I found my way to a smaller company similar to Patagonia that made outdoor clothes 100% in the U.S., and we sold to the Special Forces community and militaries around the world. So SEAL teams, Delta, Marines, Air Force PJs. So wonderful customers, very deserving, who rely on the gear as life support, but selling to the government was brutal. So we finally sold that company, and I was, hanging out, taking some time, be with my family, my 3 kids, and headhunter called.
Headhunters. With
opportunity, not you guys, with an opportunity, and it was really great. She's like, "Ed, I have this opportunity. I think you'd be really good at it. You can build brands and put your team together and build out the technology stack." And I said, "Well, that's great. What industry is it?" And you can build a brand and put a team together, and it's really a fast-growing industry. And I said, "Oh, it sounds exciting. Well, what industry is it?" And you can put your team together, and I was like, "What's going on?" What? And finally,
finally
the third time, she's like, "Well, it's cannabis." And I was like, I hadn't really thought about that, but I've been reading about it, of course. And I gave it a lot of thought, and I thought, well, this is a huge industry. It already exists, right? It's a $100 billion industry. And I did think my background had a lot of things that I could leverage, experiences that I'd had, things that have worked, things that hadn't, people that I had met along the way that I could bring, as part of a team to go after this. And a funny story that a lot of people don't know. So my father is a lawyer, and he was the Deputy Attorney General in the first Reagan administration. So the war on drugs sort of went through my dad. And my 50s, I'm not looking for parental approval, but I did say, "Hey, Dad, a headhunter called me about a job in cannabis." And he goes, "Cannabis?" And I thought, oh boy, here it comes. And then something happened, and so we got distracted. The next day I went back. I said, "Yeah, this headhunter called." And he goes, "I've been thinking about that." He goes, "You should do that." He goes, "I never thought it should have been illegal." And I was like, right on, that's cool. So that from someone who was a political appointee who stepped into that job and had to
do that.
Had to do that.
I mean,
but he said
he was happy to see that it was changing.
Yeah,
there were signs of change.
That's right. That's right.
But you took the call, you answered the call, you explored it further, and you became the CEO of one of the first cannabis companies, U.S.-based cannabis companies that had assets in multiple states to be a public company.
Yeah.
Early, and this was 20.
Well, it wasn't public. It was private. It was private. Right. We had operations in California. We had contentious operations in Nevada. We had operations with a very good operator in Ohio, and then we're pursuing licenses at the time. Eventually, they got them in Missouri and Massachusetts. And the original plan was I was on the East Coast and they were on the West Coast, and so we had a good management team. So I jumped in. I brought in my former CFO when I was at FAO Schwartz. My former chief technology officer when I also at FAO Schwartz, who knows retail and logistics and is a formidable technology leader. And you know, I learned a lot. You know, it was a challenging environment, raising capital.
Well, yeah, it was just at a time when there wasn't really a playbook yet for cannabis, and there still isn't. But it's being evolved. But back then it was just get licenses.
Yeah,
they're going to be worth a ton.
Yeah, it was a land grab. Everyone was just trying to get as big
Plant your flags
as fast as you could. Yeah,
and then you know it happened. I think you know eventually the capital markets got hot there at the end of 2018 and 2019, and then you know the sentiment became, okay, how are you going to actually make money?
Right.
And I don't know if it was related to like time-wise, but like it seemed like they started asking tech companies the same thing at the same time, and cannabis was a little bit more of a risky investment than that.
Sure.
And you know, people really had to pivot, but it was if you were an operator and you had assets that were viable and you had real value, you could get through that, and it forced you to actually do cost accounting and do all the things that normal mature industries do.
Sure.
So when you got into cannabis, you were like, there are parts of my background that would be relevant here. What were the most relevant experiences that you had that prepared you to run a public cannabis company?
Well, you know, you have to wear multiple hats, right? So I had experience in finance and marketing and product development, a little bit in manufacturing, a lot in retail, some in digital marketing. And you know, at the end of the day, you're trying to build brands here, because brands are going to be the value drivers going forward. And building a brand takes time. You have to be consistent about it. You have to be thoughtful and relentless about projecting consistent story over and over again through every customer touch point, the packaging, the product experience, if it's retail, and make sure everyone's aligned around that. And that there are some good brands in cannabis. There should be more. I think that's part of the reason why there really isn't a dominant player in California. You know, Stizzy is the market leader with less than 10% market share. That's nuts.
Right.
I would think the #1 brand would have 30% market share. I think part of it is the nature of the industry, and there's so many brands out there trying to get a foothold. But given all that noise, I think it really accentuates the need to just be consistent, reliable producer and stay on message and stay on story. And people just made so many products and just threw so much stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And you do line extensions in a time of strength. And if you're flat or you're in a difficult market, line extensions just confuse the customer. It can confuse the retail buyer, and I think it hurts your business over time.
Well, there's something, maybe a different question. Like there's something incredibly challenging yet rewarding for the right person about being a cannabis executive, right? Like what equipped you to deal with the challenge of you know, just the lack of institutions, the lack of process, the lack of sophistication in the supply chain, the lack of retail buyers? Like what has equipped you from your experience for the chaos?
Yeah, I think working for small companies. You know, big companies, those things are dialed in almost by definition.
Right.
Where small companies, you're just trying to figure it out as you go. So, you know, you do have to wear multiple hats. Maybe the best analogy was my 2 years in Japan, where I didn't speak the language well. Sometimes I didn't know what the hell was going on, but I knew what I had to accomplish, and you had to get it done one way or another.
That's being out on a limb.
Yeah.
You know, in a different country and going through that experience and not even knowing the language. So that which is a very uncomfortable process.
Yeah, for sure.
For most people. And you know, so switching gears here. You know, talking more about StateHouse, and obviously before we talk about StateHouse, you got to talk about California.
Yeah.
Like California cannabis, there's lots of you know, very consistent messaging around the challenges of being an operator. Recently, there was some tax reform enacted in Sacramento to take away the cultivation tax. But what about the California regulatory regime has been a force for consolidation? Because like the original spirit of Prop 64 was about let's preserve the legacy of California cannabis, right? And but the regulations haven't supported that. So what has made really been the force to actually consolidate and create larger companies in order to sustain and survive as a business in this state?
I think the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things, is probably 280E, but that's federal. So maybe we can come to that later. But
well, some states are like starting to do something about that,
So I think it's certainly the regulatory complexity and just the burden of operating and trying to operate as a compliant company. It's hard because the regulations are not exceedingly clear, open to interpretation.
Right.
The DCC, I think, is really becoming more of an enforcement agency, which I think in the long run is probably a good thing. Make sure everyone toes the line. But you have regulatory complexity. You have a high tax burden. The illicit market is there, probably double, maybe even triple the size of our market. And that besides having a lower cost structure, it's less safe for the consumer. You don't know what the hell's on your cannabis. You don't even know if it's cannabis, frankly. Right. So that's a huge challenge. So you look at all those things, and how do you compete in that environment? You just got to be really efficient. And one of the advantages of being a vertically integrated company, we grow over 70% of our own production. And when prices are low, they're going to be high. That's a steady flow that we can just assure the quality of that flower. We understand, our hands are in the soil. We understand the nutrients we're putting in that. We understand the pest management program. We understand the trimming and the drying and how that weed is handled all the way to our factory. I think that matters. Back to my comment about consistency and reliability of supply. And then selling it all the way through to our own store, the margins of being vertical are, we should be over 70% gross margins of our product that we sell in our own retail stores. So that profitability in a time of heightened competition, price compression, right. Just gives you an operating cushion or an ability to survive just all these challenges. And the government very, very appreciative and thankful for the cultivation tax elimination, but then moving the excise tax to retail takes quite a bit of that back. I think perhaps the most intriguing thing of what the governor signed on July 1st was $10,000 a day fines for illegal operators and $10,000 a day fine for landlords who lease their facility or their buildings to illegal operators. If they enforce that, that may be the secret weapon that will actually do something about reducing the prevalence of the illicit market.
Right. So what about the synergies? I mean, pulling off M&A in any industry is hard. Pulling it off in California cannabis, which may have some tribes and crews out there, is probably even harder. But talk about the synergies of Harborside, Urban Leaf, Loud Pack, and Sublime, and putting that all together, like in the teams from all these organizations together, which again, integration of talent and people, and making sure you have the right people to move forward as this new entity. Like, talk about the synergies of the businesses.
Yeah, so first of all, the complexity of the deal. We had an army of lawyers and bankers to go through this, and everyone worked really hard to make that happen. It was not easy. And I don't think any merger in cannabis is easy just because of the complexity of the business, checking licenses, checking compliance records, all that stuff is a huge challenge. Managing investor expectations, founders, all that. So in terms of the synergies, we knew the vertical structure was a win. We knew having scale was a win. And the early proof of that was raising $77 million from Polaris. We got that in just under the wires. Interest rates started to go up at 10.25%. I'm hearing some of the rates people are raising right now, and
it got friendly there for a year or so for cannabis. It got a lot friendlier than it historically has been, which has been predatory and shark-like.
Yeah, super tough right now. So we feel very fortunate to have closed that deal when we did. And then it was a matter of, first of all, figuring out the team, putting an org chart together, and who do I want on this team? And the way it worked out, the senior team anyway, we had about 7 from Harborside, 6 from Urban Leaf, and 6 from Loud Pack. that wasn't an objective. That was just me at the end of the day counting up, hey, this is pretty well distributed across the companies. And I think that matters. And then just focusing on, all right, how do we get cultivation under one management? How do we get all the disparate manufacturing entities to greenfield? Because that's where our scale is going to come to bear. It was just getting rid of duplicative functions, duplicative roles, duplicative operations. And I think we can say the integration is done. We've done that. We're all one entity now. We're StateHouse. We don't have multiple operations in multiple locations. And now we're really optimizing what we've got. We've done the heavy lifting around headcount reductions, which are brutal, but you know, we had to do it. We just can't afford to keep all those people. And we're really focused on optimization and continuing to get the benefits of being vertical, taking a look at our brands and properly segmenting them. There were some overlapping brands.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you're talking, you know, with Loudpack as well. I mean, dozens.
We had 9 brands in total, and you know, some of them even competing with each other. So now what we're doing is clearly delineating. You know, Dime Bag. We want to dominate the bottom shelf with Dime Bag. That can be in every retail store in California with a really good price-value relationship, tight focused product line, and just relentless you know, product in stock, and just be there for that everyday smoker who doesn't want to spend a lot of money, which is probably most of the customers in July of 2022. And then we have you know, a good, better, best strategy around our next level of product with Fuzzies, Loudpack, and Kingpen and King Roll. And then the interesting thing is the Urban Leaf brand. You know, the Urban Leaf stores, 40% of the business was driven by Urban Leaf private label product that you can't get anywhere else. And I think that's a sort of a superpower for us. Is I'm not competing with other retailers. We define the price-value relationship for that. It's exclusive to us, and you know, we're placing that now in the Harborside stores and beginning to ramp that up, and that's a real margin driver. Back to that mid-70s gross margin point that I made earlier, we can drive a significant percentage of business in our stores from our own private label brands. That's a winning strategy for us. But as a retailer, I also know retail's about discovery. I think what percentage of our sales need to come from our own brand? 40, maybe 50, but above that, I think it detracts from the experience. Because you go to a store, okay, I'm familiar with these brands, cool, what else do they got? Here's a little brand I've never heard of, or here's something else that I've always wanted to try, and I'm going to check it out. Retail fundamentally is about discovery and walking out with a smile on your face. Oh, cool, I can't wait to, I got my old standbys, and I got 2 things that are new that I haven't tried before. So I think that balance is really important in any CPG business, and I think it is in cannabis too.
Well, and especially because you need, you know, other shops to carry your brands, and you also want the consumers to have whatever they're going to buy the most of. And there's a strategy there. And to be fair, Urban Leaf has always, I think, had a reputation for, you know, paying the brands, which brands appreciate in California.
Sure.
Number one, number two, and also, like, even though they're selling their own stuff, there's a strategy for other brands to be successful.
Yeah.
You know, and that's been the reputation.
And I think there's an interesting point in there around channel conflict, which not a lot of people are talking about in cannabis yet, but I think they're going to. And by channel conflict, I mean companies like us who have brands that we're selling out to other retailers, but we're also selling them in our stores. That's channel conflict. And retailers will say, well, I'm competing with you. You've got a store 3 miles away. We have this, you have your product in my store, and you may give yourself favorable inventory treatment and stiff me on getting inventory. And that element of conflict isn't healthy for us. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to take a couple of our brands and get them out of our stores, and they're only going to be available for other retailers. Because I don't want to be in conflict with them, and I want to show, hey, we're serious about this. We're going to support you. You're not going to have to worry if we have a sale at an Urban Leaf or Harborside store that it's going to detract from your business, because we won't be discounting this brand because it's not even in our stores. That's one of the reasons I like the Urban Leaf brand, because there is no channel conflict. But you know, channel conflict, you think about it, look at brands, look at Ralph Lauren, for example. Okay, great design, great colors, but part of his genius, which I don't think many people understand, he sliced his name 14 different ways to have his brand at Walmart, at Kohl's, at Macy's, at Bloomingdale's, at Bergdorf Goodman with Purple Label, and no one competed with each other because they had their own version of Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren, Purple Label, RLX. Everybody had a different brand, and there was no channel conflict. And he got effectively 14 cuts at the pie and made billions of dollars.
And, well, with channel conflict, I mean, and you see this in some of the limited licensing states too. It creates this like horse trading element that's problematic.
Yeah, so I'll get companies calling me, say, hey, we've got stores and brands. We'll put your brands on our shelves if you'll put our brands on your shelves. And while I certainly appreciate the attention and the offer, the most important person in that equation is not on the phone call or in the room, it's the customer. So we view ourselves as fierce defenders of our shelf space. It is valuable. And if you want your brand to be on our shelf space, you got to earn your way on that. I got to be confident that there's going to be sell-through, that there's customer demand, that you're going to be a reliable producer, that you're going to support us with marketing programs, and that we can think of ways to drive traffic to our mutual benefit to our store. And if I take your products and put them on our shelf and they don't sell, I'm hurting myself because the customer comes in, I don't like those brands, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Your whole inventory.
Yeah. And you're using up your capital on unproductive inventory.
Yeah. Talk to me about getting these different teams integrated and the values of this new entity that you internally, like what the people come into work stand for, what you want them to think about, how you want them to feel, because it's not easy to do the job in cannabis. It's not easy to retain talent in any industry, especially through acquisitions when people are in different roles and different teams.
Yep.
You know, and their kingdom has changed. Right. Like what type of values are you looking to lead and show within the team?
Hugely important. Maybe the most important thing is how do you build that culture and those values? And let me answer that in a second, but I want to first talk about the challenges. So anytime you put, in this case, 4 brands together.
SoCal, NorCal, like it's.
And one of the perhaps underappreciated aspects of doing a merger is brand loyalty exists with employees to effectively their former company. Oh, we did it differently at our company. And there's this.
You see that with MSOs all the time.
There's this we, they, and oh, well, now I'm being told to do it this way. You know, I roll and throw up the hands. And so you get sort of people sitting on their hands and saying, well, someone's going to tell me what to do because I don't like this new way of doing it. And that's a real challenge, particularly I think in cannabis, because so many of these brands, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, right? People hurt them.
People working in this industry have heart and passion for what it is they do.
And they care. And so that's an ongoing challenge for us, is how do you get people to let go? I talk about this all the time. We have town hall meetings where I get everyone on a Zoom call and talk about issues we're facing or progress we're making. And there's no longer us and they, there's a we. And that's why I think the StateHouse name is important. People need to let go of Sublime, Harborside, Urban Leaf, and Loudpack and hold on to StateHouse and be thinking that way, that we're in this together and we're going to build something new. And on the values, hugely important to me, coming out of values-driven companies like Patagonia and FAO Schwartz, I've got a lot of almost reverence for the importance of values in building and creating a dynamic culture. But really important to me, it's not Ed's values. A 50-something-year-old white guy is probably not the best collection of values for a cannabis company. So what we're about to start doing is reaching out into stores, into our Greenfield and Salinas location, and getting groups of employees together with a whiteboard and just saying, what should be our mission? What's our why here? I've got an idea of what I think it should be, rooted in advocacy in the plant. I think we'll maybe talk a little bit about Suits and Stoners and why I think you need both.
You have to. You have Harborside.
Yeah, you need both.
Absolutely.
So that's our heritage. We can't. Why would we abandon that? No. So great. Obviously, quality and a fundamental focus on the customer, respect for each other, and accountability. It's tough. You got to work hard. And sustainability. 1, it's a younger customer demographic. 2, it's California. 3, the industry isn't doing well, and if it doesn't want more regulation, we've got to improve our sustainability practices and really stand for something. Power consumption, use of one-time plastic,
Right.
all that kind of stuff.
Well, it matters to consumers that are not just going to go in and buy the cheapest thing,
right?
Which there's consumers that will, and for cannabis, but the consumer that is a bit more maybe educated about what it is they're looking for, they're going to look for that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to get these teams to just boost all these things up, and we'll begin to pull them together. And we'll find common threads in there and begin to sketch out, hey, here's what we're hearing, and get that's it, or maybe not. And you're never going to get 100% alignment on this, but it has to come from the employee base. It can't be from bottom up. It can't be pushed down for it to be real, and for it to be motivational, and for people to say, yeah, that's what we said. This is something new and different, and I'm letting go from the past, and I am hopping on this train because it's exciting and it's what we want to do. That's the only way you win in any industry, is having a strong culture. And then new people come in, they kind of absorb that and build on it, and maybe add something of their own, and they go in that direction. I think back to my Patagonia experience. It can be a virtual cycle. When I worked at Patagonia, there were 3 things that brand stood for: quality, functional product, and environmental, focus on sustainability. And then importantly, the supply chain knew, hey, we have a new recycled material. The first call was to Patagonia. Do you want this? So you got first dibs on innovation coming through the supply chain. You had a very innovative employee base who knew they were focused.
And there was a business that lived by its values.
Yeah, and then most importantly, the customers expected that.
Right.
And so that virtual cycle just drove that company, and it was really great to be part of that. It was really an engine of innovation and alignment. And they drank the Kool-Aid. No, it was real. The Yvon Chouinard and Melinda Chouinard and the culture they built there. It's powerful and palpable, and the owners stood by their values. And the management team stood by those values. I remember I was at a board meeting where the company agreed to pay bail for employees who were arrested for nonviolent protests at environmental sites. Our general counsel was sweating. He's like, "Oh my God, this." But talk about a company that stands for its values, right? They're like, "You get arrested if you're protesting." Yeah, yeah. So that's what I want to build here. I think that's our opportunity, and it's sort of the challenge of all these 4 disparate companies. They're actually more aligned than not. It's funny, they all have feel-good family in there somewhere, in their historical terminology.
There's an ethos to the California cannabis industry in general, and these were independently flagship operators.
Right.
That together on the same page, there's got to be more synergy than you would think when you really root down into it.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to build. And I think we can get there. I think this industry has such passion and alignment, has people who want to be part of something bigger and better, and want to work for a company that they're proud to say, yeah, we do things right for the right reasons here. And we do that. Again, it'll be reflected in the supply chain, and most importantly, the customers will say, I want to give my business to that brand or those brands because my values are aligned with their values.
That is a correct message. And you were talking to me earlier about the fact that you're out there, like you're doing ride-alongs with the sales team. You're talking to salespeople from other brands. Like you're going to the facilities, and trying and establishing that. Because obviously, there's no time to wait. Like it's going. The business is going. Like you're. I mean, I don't even know if there's been an earnings yet of StateHouse.
Not yet.
But it is the largest by revenue California only cannabis company, correct?
Yeah. We believe so.
We will see. But so the inertia and the expectations around that, like it's not going to stop and slow down. But you're being thoughtful in terms of trying to build it the right way and take advantage of the opportunity to create as much cohesion and synergy as all the bankers and investors and owners all saw in unlocking the value of this.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, I can sit in an office all day, easy enough, and talk to bankers and lawyers and all that sort of thing, and look at reports. But am I really learning anything there? And particularly now, I need to be out in a greenfield manufacturing operation. One, I learn, and two, just the opportunity to talk to employees and for them to see me, oh, there's our CEO again, he's not in an office. And traveling with a sales rep, a great chance for me to hear their issues and concerns. I always learn, every day when I'm out with a sales rep and visiting stores. I learn from the buyers and the owners of the stores. I see new retail concepts. I get a sense of the industry. Brand segmentation is starting to happen. I'm encouraged by that. It's just so valuable. The other day I was in Greenfield. I got there a little bit early, and the managers weren't there. And so I walked out, without having, some senior manager with me. And so I got to, it was a little easier to talk to people. Right. And I was in one of our cultivation greenhouses, and a guy had been there for several years came up to me, and he's like, "Hey, Ed," and he introduced himself. And he used, "Oh, they're having us do this." And I'm like, "Dude, you got to stop with the they." But then he said, "I heard what you said at the last town hall meeting, and here's what we're doing to, in this case, operate more efficiently." And I was like, well, right on, it's working. People are listening. And I think it's that element of, I'm not there saying, do this, but I'm trying to talk directionally. Here's where we're going. Here's why it matters. And pretty soon I'll be talking about all those cultural things, the why and the values and what we're about as an organization. But that reinforcement, I don't know, it's what a leader should do. I'm not out there looking at spreadsheets. I'm going to do that at night and on the weekend. But right now, the most important thing is more people I can talk to, and they can hear directly from me what I want the company to become and how I want us to work together. I think that's the secret sauce that's going to make it successful.
I mean, the business is only good as the people, and you being out there talking to the people, you're actually going to figure out the ship that you steer and what its identity is, and what you have, right? And it makes complete sense. I'm a little bit of a cannabis data nerd, more on the employment side, but I got to imagine there's some amazing insights based on the volume on the retail level that you have access to package. Like anything you want to share about the importance of data when you're trying to look for efficiency? Yeah,
for sure. So remember that technology guy I mentioned that I brought over on the first company? I brought him over to this company, and the technology stack is improving in cannabis, but it needs work.
It's not.
So we are one store away. By middle of August, we'll have all the stores on a common technology platform. LeafLogix, iHeartJane with OnFleet for last mile delivery, and that matters. We're looking at data the same way. We have access to all the reports are going to trickle up, and the people we're bringing in appreciate and can utilize data. And I was pleasantly surprised as the companies came together. Some of these brands are deep have deep appreciation for and utilize data. So that's been a real win for us. And I think back to the vertical benefit, we can take what happens at retail. Customers buy one brand and maybe two others. What brands work well with others? How our brands are placed in a bag with other products from other categories. If I can arm our sales reps with that data from our stores, and they go to a single store in some part of California, and the person says, "Oh, I'm not going to buy that brand for this reason," they can come back with, "Hey, let me tell you what we see across our 13 stores. You have that one category leader, but this is a hot category. Buy these two other brands around that, and you should see X percent, increase in growth there, and those customers are more likely to buy multiple units and drive up your average daily transaction." That's a win for you and a win for us. And that buyer might say, "Holy shit, I hadn't thought of that. Fantastic. I appreciate having access to that Urban Leaf Harborside trove of data that's going to help us run our business." And I think that's the next step in sales. It's not just here's some product, buy it, but that background information. Hey, we crafted a sample buy for these reasons, and here's a data report that we're going to give you maybe on a quarterly basis from what you're selling, and we'll compare that perhaps on an index basis with what happens in our stores, and maybe you can use this to your benefit. I think we really have to think of ourselves, we're all selling products at retail together in California, and if our data can be shared with our retail partners, that's going to be a win for us.
I mean, it sounds like I'm just hearing sophistications happening before my eyes in some ways, because that type of what people buy with other things that exists in other CPG and retail environments. The industry's evolved to a point where the technology can be set up to provide an appropriate story to inform strategic business decisions and help your sales team empower them to land, accounts and channels.
Yeah, like a vendor managed inventory program is very common in apparel retail, but it's not yet in cannabis, but it's come. This part of my business is handled. I can focus on, more esoteric things and rounding out the product mix to drive efficiencies or margin. Or if it's a owner buyer, they can be on the floor with customers and their team to drive improvements there.
Right. Well, automating the buying process to maximize throughput for brands would probably be refreshing to a lot of brands out there, based on their experiences so far. But Ed, you've shared so much. Last thing I got to ask, obviously FlowerHire is a recruiting executive search firm. Talk to me about what you guys are hiring for, what you look for when you're looking for potential candidates at any level.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm going to say thank you, because we did use you to bring in our new VP of Marketing, Angela Pai, and she's been terrific and hit the ground running, so that's a big win for us, and I'm happy to express appreciation in the camera for FlowerHire.
She's here, by the way.
That was unscripted, by the way. That was great. I think, as a leader of a company, I want self-starters. We're trying to drive entrepreneurial spirit into our retail stores. I want people to throw out ideas and not look for, some more senior executive to make a decision for them. So it's someone who has a drive and wants to look at the data and make a recommendation, wants to hold themselves and others accountable in the business. It's a time to work hard right now. I think it always is. I do think a lot of times in hobbyist businesses, and I saw some of this at Patagonia, where there's a lot of snow at Mammoth, or there's good surf at C Street. So I'm going to ditch my job and go do that because I work for a company that makes clothes for that. Well, that's great, but you got to get the work done. And
cannabis is work. I mean, it is. Yeah. It for some people, because it aligns with what they believe in and what makes the world a better place, they're happy to put their all into it, because they wake up excited and motivated to do it.
Yeah.
Right. But it is definitely a hard work industry.
It is, and I think one of the great things about a vertical structure is there's just a lot of opportunity in our company. And you're working at a store, a chance to go work in manufacturing, to come in a corporate office and take that skill and get into marketing, go into the field and sales, and all of a sudden you're sitting in my seat. That would be awesome to have that type of upward flow through the organization. And we have a really solid StateHouse Skills Center with video training that we're really pushing out to make sure people feel like, hey, I can build a career here, and there's opportunity for me to learn new skills, develop new relationships, and participate in the equity ownership of this company going forward.
That's fantastic. Ed, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming in.
Great to see you, Dave. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.